Hello, this is social media attorney Mark Fiedleholtz, and welcome to my podcast explaining why my social media red flag warning system is so urgent and how it works. Let's first start with why I developed the red flag warning system. Based on the thousands of professionals that have participated in my online and live social media liability seminars, I can say with great authority that prior to attending my program, 99% of attendees were either unaware or misinformed on two specific areas of workplace speech liability. First, there was confusion on what specific words, pictures, video, and other social media content was covered by the free speech clause of the First Amendment. Now, second, there was confusion on when does an employee have First Amendment coverage on their private social media accounts and devices, especially regarding off-duty speech. Now, the traditional approach to closing this informational gap has been handing out boilerplate social media policies to employees, accompanied by general verbal warnings from their in house attorney, or attending outside conferences that featured employment attorneys, or doing some research online to find the answers. Now, it's obvious these solutions don't work because 100% of my online and live program attendees failed a simple 5 question social media law pretest. It basically was a competency test. And it was interesting in their evaluations, the course evaluations, there was a common refrain, which was basically this. The attendees said that if they learned my social media red flag warning system in their previous training, they would not have made the social media mistakes they made in the past. Excuse me. And they would have felt much more confident developing not only their social media content, but all their email, text, and other digital communications. Now, I should also note that in many of the lawsuits that I've researched, the defendants stated they were given a social media policy and prior in house training. But they claimed the policy was confusing and they were only given general warnings. Also, the instructor was a busy in house attorney or outside employment lawyer, but not a qualified licensed social media attorney specialist. And of course, that's going to make a big difference. So that's the background on why I developed a more in depth online and live social media liability training program that included an easy to apply social media red flag warning system for non lawyers. And let me emphasize, although lawyers like my course, this program was built for non lawyers. All right, so here's how my red flag system works. First, you should know that the social media red flag warning system was based on the premise that we have a new pool of employee broadcasters and publishers out there with little or no media law training. Prior to social media, access to powerful mass media platforms that could reach millions of people were limited to journalists, public sector or private sector spokespeople for their organizations, advertisers, and of course, celebrities. Most average people couldn't afford access to powerful broadcasting and publishing platforms that could amplify their opinions or products on a daily basis to millions or possibly billions of people around the world. Social media networks knock down those economic and technical barriers. But it's the old cliche with great power also comes great responsibility. And this is where most public and private entities are running into problems. Many organizations have focused on social media branding without equal attention paid to in depth social media liability training for all employees, not just the social media manager or organization spokesperson. Now, my social media red flag warning system fills that gap, that educational gap. And what happens here is it will end up mitigating employee risk of making costly social media mistakes, and simultaneously, it will help you from avoiding mistakes that destroy the public trust and trigger big legal damages. So there's a lot at stake here. All right, now, here's a quick overview of the nuts and bolts of the system. There's 3 steps, right? Step one, the first step is to eliminate the costly myths regarding social media freedom of speech and privacy, especially focusing on off duty privacy on private social media accounts and personal devices. These myths have destroyed careers, hurt the public image of many organizations, and definitely opened the door to big dollar lawsuits. Once you eliminate social media myths, you then are open to learning new and critical media law information that is taught in step two. In step two, you are given more in depth and expert education on the 4 core areas of broadcasting and publishing law. You notice I said broadcasting and publishing law and not employment law. This is a whole different approach here. For instance, You receive an easy to understand analysis of what opinions, jokes, memes, hashtags, video, live streaming, sharing, liking, and other forms of digital communications that are classified by federal courts now as high liability speech. I focus on federal courts because if federal courts have a higher standard of care for certain speech than state courts, or there's conflicts with state courts, the federal standard will be followed. Now, this is known as the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution of the United States, Article 6, Clause 2. It establishes that the Constitution, federal laws made pursuant to it, and treaties made under its authority constitute the Supreme Court of the land and take priority over conflicting state laws. So I encourage you, to research the Supremacy Clause a little bit more if you want to. Again, this whole course is built around federal law and United States Supreme Court law. That's why I can market it nationally. All right, so more specifically in step 2, you learn about the nuances of libel, libel by implication, republication, retweeting, new First Amendment court rulings, on-duty, off-duty invasion of privacy triggers, and copyright infringement. Those are real important areas of mass media law. Now, this information helps you build a solid foundation to move to step 3. So you can see in my system, every step is important. And then as we move to the next step, you build on that prior step. So finally, step 3, now that you have eliminated costly social media myths in step 1, and you built a strong legal foundation in the area of social media libel, First Amendment law, social media privacy, and copyright infringement in step 2, you are now ready and equipped to identify and eliminate high liability speech. Not only on social media, by the way, it's on all digital media, your emails, your texts, everything. And again, let me repeat, all right? This system is for all digital communications. You really get a lot of mileage out of it, all right? So to wrap it up, my new social media red flag warning system replaces general verbal warnings that are ineffective and don't hold up in court as adequate social media law training, especially under 1983, Federal Statute 1983, all right? And you also learn with this system to identify and eliminate not only overt things, but hidden high liability speech. And that's a real key here. So this system protects your career, public image, and mitigates the risk of costly lawsuits. It's a very powerful system. Remember now, it's based on 30 years of my experience in training over 100,000 public sector and private sector professionals. All right, well, we've come to the end of this podcast. I hope the information convinces you to immediately register yourself and all your employees, if you have them, for my cost-effective social media liability online course and other related programs. So thank you for your time, and this ends the podcast.